hip hop. This is hip hop. This is the good news of hip hop. That's right, that's right. We're gonna let y'all filter right on in. Appreciate y'all for being alive. Even if you're not live with me, you are alive. Thus, those of individuals who have transitioned, we say peace and rest to your souls, to your soul. I am Miss Show King, Queen, right? Truth Media, we're in the building, and we are global via this hip hop stream. It is Monday afternoon, Pacific time and Eastern time. I do want to give this is a series that I just created, literally, just meaning like the other day, today, whatever, that I just created to share during this poetry month. As we know, poetry is hip hop. Peace to YouTube, peace to Facebook. We are live on both streams. We appreciate you once again for being here, being alive and well. Again, and for being live with us. Peace and blessings, preaching the richest blessings. Let's see if we can make sure that we are on point with both of these streams. Let me know if you are not getting true feed. True feed meaning like in real time, if it's stuttering, if it's tripping out on you. But once again, this is the What is Hip-Hop? Hip-Hop Educational Series presented by the Hope4HipHop Project. I am she who will be presenting this information to you, for us, by us, meaning hip-hop, the hip-hop culture, and this new, beautiful, amazing hip-hop evolutionary life that we have here today. As it was a medium and still is a medium to get out of poverty and oppression. So, as we read from A New Covenant, again, our series is based on the Gospel of Hip Hop book series, penned by KRS-One, the amazing, the great, legendary, iconic KRS-One. I'm using the mic because I know I have music playing, and I want to make sure that these lessons are heard, felt, seen, presented in its finest, most authentic voice. And I'm here to just read straight up from the book, from the text of the book. We could discuss on other platforms, but I just want to get into it and discuss from the book. We left off, if you have the book, you can turn with me. We started on page 6 and a book called A New Covenant. Right? The New Covenant is a covenant for righteousness. Is a new covenant. So, meaning anything that was created before it doesn't completely nullify, but this is something new that we are going with. We reach back to go forward, right? So in this book, A New Covenant, and it begins on page 6. We read through verses 1 through 50, so we're going to go ahead and continue with this verbiage through the text so that we can all be on one accord. We're going to go ahead and start at verse 50. So that we can make sure that we just kind of overlap a little bit, so that we are not missing out on any messages or any messaging that is to come for us. Once again, if you're out there, this is hip hop education. What is hip hop? And we're going to go straight through the text of the hip hop gospel called the Gospel of Hip Hop, the First Instrument. Once again, penned by KRS-One. I've been looking for this online and I have not found it. There's been certain mediums and stuff like that, but I figure just as people go in teaching the Quran and they teach all these modalities and Christianities and all of these things from all of these literature books, scholar books, holy books, if you will. This is hip-hop's holy book, and I haven't seen anyone reading from the holy book. So if you are a reader of this hip-hop gospel, gospel meaning good news, it's nothing but the good news. That's why I titled this the good news, because it's good news. There's so much in hip-hop that we hear that are negative, and I just want to go ahead and dispel any negativity that they're trying to have come for us, or that they want to assume that we are about, because we are not about negativity. We are all about positivity. Nope, we are not about negativity. Yes, we are all about positivity. Yes, yes, we are so blessed. We don't have to stress. We just come for this. We just come for this. See, it just gets you in the mood like that. So let's get into it. Hip Hop Gospel. First book is called A New Covenant. We're going to begin in verse 50. That begins on page 15 at the bottom, in case you're reading along. Now just listen. It's all good. Just listen. Just listen. Just listen. Just listen, listen. Alright, so it states, if we can acknowledge the fact that hip-hop came to us as a saving force, we are then encouraged to ask, for what purpose were we saved? Why did hip-hop happen? Not how did hip-hop happen, but why did hip-hop happen? Right? Verse 50, top of page 16, verse 50 says, yeah, hip-hop has made a lot of people wealthy, including myself. That's KRS-One, not me. But the real question for a grateful and highly appreciative hip-hopper is, why? Why is hip-hop hip-hop? What is its real purpose? These questions reach far beyond getting a little money. These questions lead to salvation and peace. For if we have, these questions reach far and beyond getting a little money. These questions lead to salvation and peace. For if we have evidence of an unseen force operating amongst us, and we do, such evidence should lead us to ask more questions regarding such a force that seems to love us very much. What kind of force is this? Is it God, or is it our own egos? How can we know? Verse 52, well, first, if we can acknowledge that God, the great, unified field of infinite possibilities, is one great event, and we hip-hop are not separate from the oneness of such an event, then hip-hop too is an idea of God. And because we exist in the mind of God, we too belong to God and are heirs to a certain unique divinity unmatched by any other in our time. We can even see historically how other cultures have described the God force that have saved them from certain death as a voice, right? An inner urging, a word that instructed them and guided them to victory. Such an urging is accompanied by seeming coincidences, miracles, and natural events that line up with the intent of that urging. It is not words that God speaks. It is life. The voice of life is love. This is God's word. And this is what saved us. Public Enemy heard a word. KRS-One heard a word. Big Daddy Kane heard a word. Professor Griff heard a word. So when they heard the word inspired new thought. Yeah, pain, but then they started rapping. There was no beat to it then. It was just spitting out lyrics. But the lyrics were powerful. And the lyrics were not producing. And the lyrics were powerful. And the lyrics were not popular in those circles that produced us. So they were producing themselves. They were distributing themselves and becoming rich. And so those who always watch for trends would ask, what's the new trend among them? Ooh, it's called rap. Bring some of it. Let me hear it. When they took that in the room, they said, oh, we can't. Why? The negras are listening to this. Why, if they keep listening to this, our police won't have work to do. They, hip-hop, gonna start building something. That's quoted by Minister Louis Farrakhan, 2007. Verse 54, when I was wandering around Brooklyn and Manhattan without a house or a home, it was this word that guided me. It was this word that showed me where to sleep, how to eat, and when to study. This is how I became the teacher. I heard the voice of God and followed it. It was this voice that led me to leave home at 16 years of age and drop out of high school to pursue hip-hop. It was this voice that taught me things that I never read or heard before, only to substantiate such knowing later in life. It was this voice that recited to me the poetry that I recite to others. It was this voice that instructed me in battle. It was this voice that inspired the Stop the Violence movement. It was this voice that inspired the Stop the Violence movement, 1989, and the Temple of Hip Hop, 1996, and this Gospel for Hip Hop, 2009. It was this voice that first called me teacher, right? It was this voice that first called me teacher and instructed me on how to inspire both elementary and college students without ever having attended college myself. It was this voice that told me what to say at Yale University, at Harvard University, at Oxford University, in London. In fact, it was the instruction of God's voice, God's urging, that guided me through all of the colleges and universities I've taught at, even though I didn't hold a junior high school diploma. It was this voice that taught me how to teach. It was this voice that first called me KRS-One, and I've repeated it ever since. Obedience to this voice is indeed the source of my intellectual strength and artistic longevity. All praise, glory, and worship be to God, the love that has lifted us up. This is exactly why this gospel is before you now. It is because that same still small voice that has guided KRS-One thus far is guiding you now. This is real. And if you are indeed hip-hop, you must learn that there is a divine blessing and grace upon your life you cannot afford to continue ignoring. And this is what the gospel of hip-hop is all about. This training is all about getting you to recognize your spiritual reality and begin living your life outside of the fear and worry caused by excessive material want. This gospel acknowledges hip-hop as an idea of the divine mind and reunites the hip-hopper with the existence of such a mind. This is how I became KRS-One. Others may have entered the rap music industry in other ways, or may have been hooked up by this one or that one, but as for KRS-One, It was and still is the mystical life and its real effects that got me started as an MC, a rapper. And this awareness is what I teach to all serious apprentices. For I am not who I am today just because I am rap or just because I can rap. Study KRS's history closely. If my life is not a living example of what I teach, then you have no reason to believe anything I am saying here. But if my life is evidence of my claims, then why deny your blessing and the gospel that speaks directly to you? The gospel that speaks directly to you for your salvation. I am who I am so that you may clearly see who you are. But the question we are dealing with here is, how do we know if it was God that has rescued us? The quick answer is, because I just told you so. The quick answer is, because I just told you so. And if you join with me in faith, you too can become an heir to this new covenant. But a longer answer explores what others have experienced in history regarding the saving grace of the one God. One thing we know for sure is that when God raises up a people, one thing we know for sure is that when God raises up a people, it has historically been the most downtrodden, impoverished, powerless group of people that God chooses to restore and raise up. And part of the reason for this historically has been that God chooses the most powerless people to raise up, the most ignorant to educate, the most unorganized to order, so that they and the world may know once again that God is God. So that the whole world may know once again that God is God. And nothing in the world is above the power of God. Nothing in the world is above the power of God. And it doesn't matter what the world is doing or what the world has. When God decides to move, no force on or in the earth can stop such a movement. Historically, over the past 36 years, hip-hop has been such a movement in the United States. And now, this people who were once destroyed have found favor with God, as He has always favored the enslaved, the oppressed, the downtrodden. And He has favored us, not just with a prophet, but with His presence. And out of us chose one to lead, teach, and guide us to the path of His divine favor. And with that presence, He's offering to us the scepter of rulership, that which was not becomes that which is. That's right. And that which was the bottom rail, He will bring it to the top. And that which was last, He would bring to make first. This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Quoted by Minister Louis Farrakhan, 2007. That was verse 63. This is verse 64. The strength and power that hip-hop has did not come from us. We received it. Yet it was already within us when we received it. This is God. In addition, it is clear that hip-hop operates within a certain moral immunity. There is clearly a grace over us, and we must ask, for what reason are we being excused like this? For what reason do we have this grace? And for how long? Know this. Grace is a kind of mercy. It implies that you are undeserving of the mercy you are receiving. That for the activity of your selfish, inconsiderate needs, S-I-N, you should have been dead, injured, or imprisoned. But God's grace, go back to that grace. God's grace comes and rescues you from the judgment that you truly deserve. Some people realize the grace of God over their lives, and they humble themselves in thanksgiving and praise for the love they didn't deserve. Others walk blindly. Now, when you realize that in God's eye, all of us are basically animals grunting and groaning before God, and that our attempts at righteousness can never match God's, you realize that you are under God's grace, that you are being protected from your own ignorance and excused of your own immaturity. Right now, others are being killed, injured, and or incarcerated for what you are doing every day. But when you get truthful with yourself and you look at the amount of illegal, unhealthy, and stupid things you are doing and saying, yet you are never really caught by the system, you are never really sick, and dangers always seems to escape you, you realize that God's grace that is protecting you. You realize it is God's grace that is protecting you. Not your intellect, not your knowledge, not your reputation, not your respect, not your money, not even your faith has protected you from the effects of your own immaturity. It was God. It was God. When you realize this for real, you also realize something bigger than you, something stronger than you, something smarter, faster, and calmer than you is trying to communicate with you. When you actually recognize the grace on your life, you seek not more of the grace, but more of the grace giver. If you actually care, you will want to know why such a gift is being given to you. The first obvious reason is love. God cares about us. The second obvious reason is understanding. God understands us more than we understand ourselves. We belong to God. And finally, there's a plan, a purpose, a work that needs to be done. The blessing in all of us is that for some reason, this is true. The blessing in all of us is that for some reason, God believes we can get the work done. Or, in this case, God seems to believe that hip-hop can get this work done. Or in this case, God believes that hip-hop will get this work done. And we will. Verse 70. Now, when you look at this closely, you see that God's grace is also God's faith in the belief that we, hip-hop, are worthy of grace. That we will get the work done. For when God gives a people grace, it is because of the work that we have been called to do. It is because of a purpose that will be fulfilled. We are being excused of our wickedness and immaturity right now because we are obviously victorious in our future. God can see that, and we are encouraged to see that also. But such grace is not a free pass for continued ignorance. Don't get it twisted. If you are not fulfilling the vision God has placed upon your life, suddenly and without warning, your grace can disappear. Grace is only provided for you to catch up to the vision God has for you. If you are not perfecting yourself and moving toward the vision God has shown you, grace will not save you from your own stagnation and ungratefulness. Grace will not save you from your own stagnation and ungratefulness. God's vision for hip-hop is also, where am I? God's vision for hip-hop is where I just left off. Okay. God's vision for hip-hop, verse 72, is also God's promise to hip-hop. But God's people are called long before they even know they have been called. This is where grace comes in. Grace gives you a chance to catch up to God's already in progress plan and vision. Know this. God calls us things before we actually become them. God's vision for us is not a far-off dream. It is an actual promise as to what God has in store for us. However, if you don't rise to the promise, you don't get it. It is not that the promise will not happen. It is more that you just won't be a part of it. That was verse 73. 74. The hip-hop spiritual life acknowledges God's already in progress grace and inspires the hip-hopper to walk worthy of that already received grace. The hip-hop spiritual life acknowledges the standards, practices, and principles of the grace giver. We respect the promise and the promiser, for it is our respect for the promiser that motivates us to rise to the level of the promise. Just imagine, if someone promised you something, you would have to respect the promiser in order to receive that promise. You have to believe that the one promising is actually capable of delivering such a promise. If you don't believe or respect the promiser, even if the promiser can deliver the promise, you will never achieve it simply because you don't respect nor believe the promiser. A promise is like a two-way street. Both the giver and the receiver have to cooperate for a promise to be fulfilled, especially a promise that is like a received gift. If you don't join in on the faith of the promiser, it is you, right, who walks away from your own gift. In this case, the promiser is God. And hip-hop is the receiver of the promise and gift. And hip-hop is the receiver of this promise and gift. All those who join in on this faith, verse 77, join in on a new covenant, complete with health, love, awareness, and wealth, a covenant that provides peace and prosperity to all who claim hip-hop as their culture and lifestyle. This is real. I'm going to read that again, verse 77, in the book called A New Covenant. All those who join in on this faith, join in on a new covenant complete with health, love, awareness, and wealth. A covenant that provides peace and prosperity to all who claim hip-hop as their culture and lifestyle. This is real. God has already made us a holy nation. The challenge for us now is to rise to the character of God's vision of us before this season of grace runs out. And the key word here is vision. Vision gives us direction, purpose, and restraint. Vision gives us direction, purpose, and restraint. When you have a vision to achieve, you are seriously committed to it. The world's temptations don't affect you. When you have a vision to achieve and you are achieving it, you are in harmony with not only God's vision, you are in harmony with God's law. In such a condition, grace is unnecessary. It is the living law of God that protects and guides you now. Grace is always needed in some form or another. But at this level of awareness, you are no longer unaware or immature or ignorant. So grace is not really necessary for you. Grace is for those who unknowingly break spiritual laws because of immaturity or ignorance. However, when the hip-hopper atones for past ignorance and atones herself to the vision God has promised her nation, that hip-hopper becomes God's vision and thus God's law, fulfilling the promise and thus saving herself and her whole world from destruction. This is the good news for hip-hop. This is the gospel. The gospel of hip-hop comes to hip-hop at this time because our grace period is running out again. This word keeps God's judgment at bay and gives us time to catch up to God's vision for hip-hop. This is not about possessions. This is about position. This is about getting into position to receive the promise of God. Therefore, the time has come to make final decisions regarding how deeply involved you shall explore your hip-hop reality. Is hip-hop still just a side thing to you? Is hip-hop still just a side thing to you? Or is it really your birthright and heritage? Or is it really your birthright and heritage? There it is. There it is. Ending verse 82. Ending on page 23. In the first book, A New Covenant. Inside of the Hip Hop Gospel, penned by KRS-One, our teacher, our minister, the MC. So those were just some teachings from the hip hop scriptures, the New Testament, and I just wanted to share those words. There's a lot that I need to go and reflect on and kind of just, think on for myself in terms of this hip hop lifestyle, as we all experience the grace that we are receiving. As the text has mentioned, it's running out. So I'm going to explore what that really means and what that really calls me to do in terms of my own positioning, in terms of my own title, being a hip-hop educator, in terms of being an activist in the community, being a community member and an entrepreneur, and a consultant to other community members through movements and so on. So I have something called the Hip-Hop Choir. I have something called hip-hop spoken word and songwriting classes that I teach. I do in-home teaching, educating type tutoring through the guise of hip-hop, teaching lessons, home lessons from, blended families. There's some issues there to, divorce, suicide, depression, to the mental illness components, and really taking on that role as, I'm a counselor. I'm also a minister. I'm a minister of, let's just say I'm an ordained minister. I'm working to get an ordination in the hip-hop gospel. So hopefully that will be coming very soon. But I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep learning and keep teaching for what I know. And I think that's all it takes for the most part, is that we should always be focused on learning and teaching what we know to others who don't know it. There's always a market. There's always a barter system that you can use based on something that is needed. For instance, I have a barter system with someone right now who needs help with their children, and I've decided to do hip-hop education with them for those couple of hours. So not only am I getting a donation for the school that I'm building, the school that I'm building named, the working title is the Intensive Enrichment School, as a homeschooling and private school model, with some little bit of, I'll just say homeschool, private school model, and enrichment program as intensives, so that the children may have marketable skill sets after and upon leaving each class, actually. So in these home sessions, I do these lessons and I make them digestible for all family members, from the elders to the young ones. So if you are looking for hip-hop education in your life, hit me up, check me out. We have these videos to go back to and, listen to, and just listen to this gospel. And hopefully we can have some things going to even make this exchange a little bit more simpler, to make this exchange a little bit more digestible to those who are not in the hip-hop community or hip-hop culture or the music of it or the consciousness of it. And speaking of the music and consciousness and culture of hip-hop, I kind of want to go through some of the texts that I always like to bring up. But I'll do that in this next video coming out right now. So please, I know people say like and subscribe and follow and all of that. For me, I'll just say, listen, if you want to rate it, rate it. If you want to follow and subscribe, please do. If you want to teach this to your children, please do. If you want to share this in your classroom, in your community, in your church, in your building, in your mosque, please do. In your temples, in your community centers, in your homeschool lessons, please do share these lessons. And if you do not have this book, this is for the scholars of hip-hop. If you do not have this book, order it. Just order it online. You can order it through us here. We got it here. Just order it through Truth Media. Your order will get to you ASAP, pretty much, and the money will go to donating a portion of those proceeds. Actually, all of the proceeds, as far as proceeds and any money we make, will be going to build this school with the working title of the Intensive Enrichment School. We are also online, and I'll put those in the info box down below, right down here. I'll put it or on Facebook. I think it's either here or there. But I'll put that down there so you guys can continue to follow us. We are the Hope4HipHop project. And we are here to bring you the gospel, which is the good news of hip-hop, because Lord knows we get a lot of gossip. We get a lot of he say, she say, beefing and fighting, and really that's just the hip-hop genre. That's not even the culture. So I'm here to bring the culture back. We're on a resurgence. We're on a resurgence to bring hip-hop back, right? To bring hip-hop back to the masses in the way that we must bring them. So again, the next video I'm going to explain the definitions of hip-hop, and as well you can see us here definitely every Monday, but possibly even during the week if I could squeeze it in. So look for us every Monday. It's 3 o'clock Eastern time and noon Pacific, and all the other times y'all can base it on that. But yeah, that's that. So for a full hour, we're going to discuss hip-hop, kind of just read through the text and process a little bit, listen to some chill beats. I have a little bit of commentary, not too much, but coming up in this next hour, you're going to, again, this next video right below, subscribe, like it, rate it, do a comment, ask for a definition or a spelling of something, because hip-hop does have its own script, its own text, as we can see, and writing and so on and so forth. So I just really want to be able to teach on such projects and such subject matters. See, I got my hip-hop joint on. Y'all can order this too. Holla at me, if you want, really, just whatever. I make t-shirts. If you become a supporter and a group member, you'll receive a shirt. Any amount of donation that is above, I want to say like $20. Donations $20 at a time. We're going to get this goal. We're trying to get this real estate and this property to be able to fully function. So I figured I do teach classes online. I teach through Thinkific, as well as some other things that are coming. So support there. Maybe getting on Patreon. I'm not sure soon, but I think this for right now is working. So again, the intent is to raise funds for the school that I'm building, and you will actually see a school. I actually have students. I teach every single day. hip hop education. So that's the whole goal. And being that this is National Poetry Month, and hip hop is poetry, poetry is hip hop, I just said forget it. I'm gonna just go ahead and bring this to the listeners, the watchers, the receivers, and those who receive it will receive it. So peace and blessings. We out. Thanks again. I am Ms. Shokeen, and Truth Media Global. We are live. Facebook, holla at your girl, hit me up. YouTube, holla at your girl, hit me up. We are hip hop educators, and we out. One love. Hey, hey, hey. I like this tune, so I just kind of wanted to vibe out. Shout out to I Have a Face. That's what the producer of this track, I Have a Face, Rainy Forest, shout out. Yeah, that's you too, by the way. Yep. I'm gonna have y'all loving these tunes, and I'm gonna give as many shout outs as I can. So, peace and be more, y'all. One love.